السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. وقال تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him and we ask Him for guidance and forgiveness. And we seek protection in Allah from the malice of our souls and the evil of our actions. Whom Allah guides, no one can lead him astray, and whom He leads astray, no one can bring him back to the right path. I bear witness that there is no God that is worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and His messenger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you believed, fear Allah as He should be feared, and do not die except as a believer. O you believe, fear Allah and speak the truth, so that He may guide you and forgive you your sins. Respected brothers and elders in Islam, this month of February is the shortest month of the year. This month is also a month that is given to commemorate or to remember the history of this country. Our African American brothers and sisters, for over 400 years of slavery. They were taken from Africa, brought to America. I will talk a couple of things. There'll be a couple of parts about today's khutbah, not just, but also the history of Islam in this country. Islam is not new in this country. Islam has been around in this country for over 400 years. Muslims have been in this country. When they were taken from Africa and brought to America, there were many Muslims amongst them. And I'll mention of who, for example. In the summer of 1863, newspapers in North Carolina announced the death of an African leader. They referred him as Uncle Moro, I believe it's how it's pronounced. Omar ibn Said, a Muslim, was born in 1770 in Senegal. By the time of his death, he had been enslaved for 56 years. Muslims are usually thought of as a 20th century immigrants to the US. Yet, for well over 3 centuries or 4 centuries, African Muslims like Omar were a familiar presence. They had grown up in Senegal, Mali, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Benin, and all across West Africa. And they brought this Islam here with them. Estimates vary, but there were at least 900,000 out of the 12.5 million Africans taken to the Americas. Among the 400,000 Africans who spent their lives enslaved in the United States, tens of thousands of them were Muslims. Though they were a minority among the enslaved population, Muslims were acknowledged like no other community. This is how powerful they were. They were united. They took their deen serious, despite being small in number, but they were recognized. Slaveholders, travelers, shareholders, journalists, scholars, diplomats, writers, priests, and missionaries wrote about them. That's how significant they were, how powerful they were in this country. Amongst them was the founder of Georgia, a person by the name of James, I believe the way it's pronounced is Oglethorpe, President Thomas Jefferson, and John Quincy Adams, Secretary of State Henry Clay, author of the U.S. National Anthem Francis Scott Key, and many others. Visible manifestation of faith. Part of the Muslims, they had such a significant importance in this country was because they used to see Muslims practice their faith. Whenever possible, of the most noticeable tenets of their religion was the Salah, which is the second pillar of Islam, was one of these visible manifestation of faith noted by enslaved and those who were their master, and also those who were enslaved. So my brothers and sisters, just from this one small paragraph, we learned so many things that we ourselves can adapt or adopt in today's age. You see that despite they were slaves, despite they were working 14 hours a day, they still practiced their religion. They were not ashamed of their names. They were not afraid of their masters. As a matter of fact, even their masters witnessed their prayers. They could have stopped them, but from this we are told that they used to observe them, used to see them praying throughout the day. So for us, you'll find some Muslims today changing their names. You find some Muslims today completely changing their identity. They try to look like the disbelievers, as one example. Or they change their names from Muhammad, as we know the common name that they use, Mo. And this is also to show us, or a reminder for us, that we shouldn't be afraid to practice our deen. When it's time to make salah, let your boss know that it is time to pray and I have to pray. And a lot of times, we often think, or some of us think, that our bosses will not allow us to pray. This is totally wrong. If you want to practice your religion freely, this country protects your right. And on top of that, even the people, they'll even respect you even more when they see you pray. When I used to work for companies, I used to walk into a room, the cafeteria, for example, or the break room. And the moment, they'll be very loud talking. But the moment they see me praying, or I start praying, all of a sudden, they all stay silent out of respect for Islam. In his 1837 autobiography, Charles Ball, who escaped slavery, related in a great detail the story of a man who prayed aloud 5 times. He used to pray aloud 5 times a day in a language others did not understand. He added, "I knew several who must have been, from what I have since learned, that they were Mohammedans, though at that time I have never learned of the religion of Muhammad." Charles Spalding, Willie, had this to say about Bilali from Guinea. Enslaved by his grandfather on an island called Sapelo Island, Georgia, he used to see him pray 3 times a day, and he used to face the east, calling upon Allah. They used to see them praying 3 times a day, facing the east, calling upon Allah. Devout Muslims who pray to Allah morning, noon, and evening. There was a man named Yero Mahmud, or Mahmud. He was a visible Muslim, taken from Guinea in 1752. Yero was taken from Guinea as a Muslim in 1752. When he was about 16, after 44 years of slavery, he was freed and bought a house in Washington, D.C. Mahmoud was a kind of celebrity who was often seen and heard in the streets in Washington, D.C., praising Allah. This reminds me of the Sahabas. Imagine how much iman this person had. Despite being a slave for 44 years, going to the streets of Washington, praising Allah to everyone, in a country where anytime he could be attacked or killed. But this is just how much iman they had in reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why these people today, we are reading about them. Similarly, with the Sahabas and all of the prophets in our past, the reason we're talking about them today, it is because of the hardship, the sacrifices they made during their lifetime. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Sahabas, talks about the prophets in the Quran. Similarly, if you see that here, these people, because of their iman and love and connection they had with Allah, they attracted a lot of attention, and people started writing down everything they used to do. And a few hundred years later, here we are today talking about them. Ayuba Suleiman Diallo made the most of his literacy. Now, Diallo is a common Fulani name across West Africa. He was a trader, and he was a Quran teacher from the Islamic State of Bundu in Senegal. He was abducted in 1730 in Gambia and sold to Captain Stephen Pike at the Pike of the Arabella. Diallo told him his father would pay for his freedom, and he was allowed to dispatch an acquaintance to his hometown. But the Arabella left before Diallo could be freed. From Maryland, he wrote a letter to his father and gave it to the slave dealer with instruction to remit it to Pike. The letter did not reach him, but ended up in London in the hands of James Oglethorpe, the deputy governor of the Royal African Company and future founder of Georgia. After reading the translation, Oglethorpe arranged for Diallo's release and transportation back to England. The Senegalese arrived in London in 1733. He met the royal family and helped renowned physician and naturalist Sir Hans Sloane, whose private collection was the foundation of the British Museum, the British Library, and the Natural History Museum. Translate Arabic documents. Before returning to Bundu in July 1734, he posed for painter William Hoare and wrote 3 copies of the Quran from memory. One was sold back in 2013 for 21,000 British pounds. In Mississippi, Ibrahima Abdurrahman followed in Diallo's path with a letter he wrote in 1826. 38 years earlier, the then 26-year-old son of Muslim ruler of Futa Jalon, the 26-year-old Muslim ruler of Futa Jalon in Guinea had been captured during the war. His letter was sent to Thomas Miloni, the American consul in Morocco. He took it to the Sultan Abdurrahman, number 2, the second, who asked for Ibrahim's release. Secretary of State Henry Clay presented the case of President John Quincy Adams, who devoted a passage to the matter in his diary on July 10, 1827. So from this, we learn and we see that despite being enslaved for many years, despite having no teacher to teach them or anyone to remind them, but they had iman, they had taqwa in Allah. They memorized the Quran. Imagine after being enslaved for so many years that he wrote 3 pages of the Quran in heart. After 39 years in Mississippi, Ibrahim was freed and left for Liberia in 1829 along with his American-born wife. He died shortly thereafter. 8 children and grandchildren were freed with $3,500 he had raised for that purpose among the abolitionists before leaving the U.S. They settled in Liberia, but 7 relatives remained enslaved. So, respected brothers and elders, this is just probably 1% of the history of Muslims in this country, or 1% of what our brothers and sisters, African Americans, what they went through in this country. For 400 years, Africans were made to work in this country for free. Imagine you work for someone for free for 50 years. You have a child who works for your master another 50 years. Your great-grandchildren working their entire lifetime. Your great-grandchildren working for someone for free forever. This is what they had to go through. This is what our brothers and sisters had to go through for 400 years. African Americans built this country. They built this country with their sweat. They died. They are the reason why this country is the way it is today. It is because of the free labor, slavery that these people have done to them. Those amongst them that died, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive their sins, to allow them to enter Jannah without any reckoning. Ameen. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Now imagine free labor. Just right now, if one person works for you without getting any pay for 1 month, or you have 2 employees working for you, the average salary today, for example, $700. Now you have people working for you, not 1, not 2, but not even 10, but 100. For sure, you're going to be rich. This is what they did to our brothers and sisters. So when we see these people rich today, it is earned or inherited mostly because of what they have done to our African brothers and sisters over 400 years. This is why I believe that every African American should be repaid for what they have been done in this country. America owes African Americans so much. If I were to ever run for office, or I know someone to run for office, I would tell them, make sure you make this a big deal, make it so that they can all be compensated for what their ancestors have done. We ourselves are indebted to African Americans. And it's sad, African Americans are very the discrimination that African Americans face in this country, they continue to fight. Even Muslims judge them. Why is it that you have even Muslims who judge or judging or against the African Americans? Even before they come here, you would find a lot of Muslims who come to this country. You don't see them living in Roxbury, Mattapan, or Hyde Park. You always find them living in Newton, Brookline, all these other areas. But you will never find a Muslim doctor, lawyer, engineer living in Roxbury, Mattapan, or Dorchester. Why is that? Because before they come to this country, they do research. They do a lot of research, so they get brainwashed by the media. Then they come here, they place them in areas like those. They scare them about coming to these towns. African Americans they are an example for us to follow. In other words, all of us here today, if it wasn't because of them, we wouldn't be here. This is without a doubt. Without a doubt, none of us would have the rights that we have today if it wasn't for African Americans. In the 60s, in the 70s, they protested, they died, they risked everything for the rights of the people. This is why all of us are living in this country freely. We all have rights. Because if you know American history before, then you would understand what I'm talking about. They deserve our respect. It reminds me of a sheikh who one time he used to see this child play, and whenever this child will come next to him or close to him, he was teaching a class, he would stand up. So one of his students noticed that he's standing often. So he asked him, he said, "Oh teacher, we noticed that you are standing a lot. Why is that?" He said that, "You see that child who's playing, every time you come close to me, I stand out of respect for his for his father, because his father was my teacher. I have so much respect for his father that whenever his son came close to me, out of respect for his son, out of respect for my teacher, I would stand for the son." You see, African Americans, if they were given equal opportunity, just like the other people, they would rule this country. They would rule this country. And we can already see, this is why when you find that African Americans, when they become Muslim, they take their deen very seriously, more than a person who was born a Muslim. They study Islam, they correct Muslims who were born into Islam. Even sometimes you find those who are born Muslim, they get angry when a new convert or an African American who just recently become a Muslim corrects them. We say, "Brother, I was born Muslim, you just became Muslim today, how dare you correct me? You see, Islam doesn't discriminate whether you are born into Islam or not. If you study, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge you based on what you know. Similarly, we see other cities and states. For example, Philly. In Philadelphia and New Jersey, and even parts of New York, where the vast majority of the Muslims there are African Americans. And you see the sisters, so beautiful, dressed in hijab, most in niqab. You see the African American brothers with long beards and pants above their ankles. Even the non-Muslims, that's how much influence they had on them that they started to eventually imitate them. So, look at history. We are a minority in this country, just like the slaves were minorities when they were brought here. But they took their religion seriously. So, as a reminder for each and every one of us, let us take our deen seriously. Let us not play with our Islam. Islam is a gift. Allah can give wealth to anyone. Allah can give wealth to anyone, but when it comes to guidance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses whom He wants to give guidance. I will mention just a few things about what the African Americans' contribution to this country. A lot of things that I'm about to mention to you, probably 99% of us didn't know until today. Did you know that African Americans were the ones, according to this research that I've done, that they were the creator of the game called chess? And they were other things that they created something called the rotary engine. If you know what that is, you would understand. The biscuit cutter was created by an African American. The letterbox that we use when people come placing your mail was created by African American. The stainless steel pads was created by African Americans. The home security system was created by African Americans. The ironing board that we all use on a daily basis to iron our clothes was created by an African American. The lawnmower, if you have a house, I'm sure you know what a lawnmower is. You have to cut your grass often. This was created by an African American. Ice cream was created by an African American. Peanut butter itself was created by African American. The paints and stains, automatic fishing reel, right? You go fishing, the automatic fishing reel was created by an African American. Pressure cookers was created by an African American. Lock was created by African American. Shoe lasting machine, lubricators, elevator. Imagine an elevator. Who would think that was actually created by an African American? Otherwise, we would all be walking on stairs. We wouldn't have these 50, 60, 100 floor. Who would walk 100 floors? If it wasn't for an African American today, we would not have high rises because they created the elevator. They created the handstand. They created the dustpan. How convenient it is for us to sweep today. If without a dustpan, you would be using your hand most likely, or some other things that is not as convenient as a dustpan. What else? When you drive, what do you see often? You see traffic signals. Imagine without traffic signals. Most of us in Africa or parts of Asia, you drive, the traffic signals is the drivers. If they want to let you go, they let you go. If they don't want to let you go, they won't let you go, and this is why you find many accidents. But the traffic signal itself was created by an African American. the doorstop, the doorknob, the guitar, the golf, the motor, thermal hair curls. It's so many. The bicycle frame, Allahu Akbar. Even the bicycle frame was created by an African American. The telephone transmitter was created by African American. Helicopter, blood plasma, ice cream. So many things were created by African Americans. So this is how much contribution that they made despite of 400 years of slavery. And it's just recently, less than 40 years, actually less than 50 years, that African Americans really had their rights in this country fully. But despite of all that, how much accomplishment they have made, how much contributions they have made. So my brothers and sisters, we are indebted to African American. This month of February is a month that the US government has dedicated to the African American. Sadly, it is only 28 days or 29 days. This should be done every single month because America is indebted to our African American brothers and African American sisters. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those Muslims who passed away during the time of slavery. We ask Allah to forgive them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enter them to the highest level of Jannatul Firdaus. We ask Allah to guide us all. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring peace in the Middle East. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to unite the hearts of all the Muslims across the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase our iman. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase our yaqeen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase our closeness to Him. Those brothers and sisters who are suffering from sicknesses or health issues or financial issues, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve you from your sickness and to bless you with what's best for you and good for you in this life and the next life. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وأقيم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله هيا على الصلاة هيا على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Straighten your lines, have khush in your salah, inshallah. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum. A couple of announcements. We want to first of all praise Almighty Allah and ask Allah to reward our khatib for the day, Brother Ahmed Barry, for giving us such a wonderful reminder. I always tell people about Black History Month, being black is not enough, being white is not enough, being brown is not enough. What's going to get you into paradise is good character, good behavior, faith. So yes, we did add a lot to this country to make it the country that it is, but that's not enough. We got work to do. And the work is within Islam. And that's where our salvation lies. I'm looking for volunteers. If you could just listen for a moment. This Wednesday at 10 o'clock here for our food pantry. Raise your hands if anybody can be involved at all. We need volunteers. We got one. Huh? I'm just raised your hand. I asked you to. Well then, no, he's not going he's out. Anyways, and listen, yesterday was World Hijab Day, kind of commemorating and honoring the women, because many of us walk around, the minute they don't know that you're Muslim. I take off my beanie or whatever, they don't know we're Muslim. The Muslim women who cover themselves, they always know that they're Muslim. Some of them are black too, so they have two strikes against them. They're black and they're Muslim. So let us honor our women, and let us praise our women. Let us ask Allah to keep on strengthening our women so that they can continue to be Muslim in this environment, this world that doesn't want them to be Muslim and wants to prevent them from being believers. May Allah bless them and reward them for the effort they make to make Muslim life real in this country. We'll be praying. It comes in at, I think, 2:20, 2:26. What time does Asr come in? Huh? 2:35? Time's flying by, huh? Well, whenever it comes in, we'll pray that. So if anybody stays, you'll be praying soon in another half hour. May Allah forgive us and have mercy on us. I want to thank everyone who attended our fundraising dinner, who contributed to it, and any of you who want to be continuing benefactors to the masjid, like maybe $20 a month or something, please do that. We need your help. Glory be to you, Allah. There is no God but you. You are the ever-living and the self-subsisting. Ameen. Peace be upon your noble Prophet Muhammad, upon his family, his followers, his companions, all who follow him in goodness until the day of judgment. Ameen.
Thank you, sir.